Okay, so while people trickle in, I'd like to take the opportunity to again welcome you to a very special Earth Day edition of our Green Economy webinar series. We're going to be diving into the future of plastics waste management in just a moment. So I don't want to take up too much time with announcements, but just to keep everyone kind of on topic with our housekeeping, we will record the webinar and send it out to you in the days following this event. And you can submit questions at any time. Just pop them into the questions tab and we will get to them during the Q&A portion. We do expect a lot of questions, so if we can't get to all of them, we will do our best to answer them following the session. First, I have a few exciting announcements from partners in Project Green and the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. So we can just go to the next slide. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. So we respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territories and treaty lands, in particular those of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as well as the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty First Nations, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis Nation. So as stewards of land and water resources within the Greater Toronto Region, Toronto and Region Conservation Authority appreciates and respects the history and diversity of the land and is grateful to have the opportunity to work and meet on this territory. And if you have some time, I do invite you to check out the resource native-land.ca. It is a wonderful tool to let you see where you are located in terms of the traditional lands, so you can start to appreciate the long history of Canada. So you can see we have a pretty full agenda here today, and I want very much to get to the panel conversation because it is promising to be a very rich and interesting one. So first, just a few quick announcements from us, and then we'll get started. So first, the TRCA, the TRCA is working with the City of Toronto, Ports Toronto, and Harbourfront Centre to address the issue of floatables in the Toronto Inner Harbour. They're doing a number of wonderful initiatives this summer, two of which are the sea bins. They're going to be putting in 2 sea bins in different locations to start collecting some of that, those floatable debris that comes into the harbor. As well, we're working with the University of Toronto to do a very interesting trash tagging project. So they're going to geotag water bottles and let them go in different parts of the watershed and track how they travel down the rivers. So if you start seeing water bottles that say, I'm part of a science project, please don't dispose of me, you'll know where they come from. And that way we'll be able to map and track how they enter the inner harbor and identify where we can put additional technologies to capture all of those wastes. So you can see that if you want to learn more about that strategy, it is a long-term plan and an ongoing document. You can see the link that has been popped into the chat. Second, TRCA has a wide variety of summer camps running all over the GTA this summer, and PPG members are getting a special discount. So you can get 10% off those camps for you and your employees if you are a Partners in Project Green member. So please do take a look at those opportunities. They have such a wide range of really fun and immersive camps for the young people. And very stringent COVID protocols are in place. They've been very, very good about making sure that health is the utmost importance during these explorations into nature. So you can be sure that that'll be a very safe experience. And of course, if there were any sort of government shutdowns of the camps, you would get a full refund. So they know that we are in an interesting time and are working very hard to make everything work within that. So please do check that out. And if you are a PPG member, you can expect a special email in your inbox next week with that code. Finally, I'd like to get to our ribbon cutting here today. We're very excited to be launching the Preventing and Diverting Plastic Waste from our watersheds. This business guide provides a lot of knowledge and insights into the new regulations and business strategies that individuals and business organizations can take to manage their plastic waste. So we very much encourage you to download your copy. If you haven't already today, you can hit the link that will come up in the chat and go get your copy. And it will be the foundation for our discussion here with our panel members today. And so without any further ado, I'd like us to get to that panel discussion, because that really is the heart of our conversation here today. And I'm pleased to welcome Todd Ernst, who is the Director of Aviation Infrastructure, Energy and the Environment, to join us as our Master of Ceremonies. He is a senior business risk and sustainable professional with a proven ability to deliver practical solutions to complex business solutions. He is also the chair of the Partners in Project Green Executive Management Committee. And so we're very happy to have you here today, Todd. Thank you for emceeing this event for us.
Thank you and good afternoon. And thanks, Jennifer, for those exciting announcements and for opening the event. Strongly encourage everybody to download the resource. I gave it a quick read myself, and it's a great document. Note to everybody, you can submit your questions during the event using the questions tab. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible during the Q&A portion. The session's also being recorded, so you'll have the opportunity to watch it again or to share it with your colleagues who weren't able to be with us in person today. So why are we here today, and why is plastic waste important? I'll share a few facts with you to kick things off. The recycling level of plastics has actually stalled and remains amazingly at under 10%. This results in the vast majority of plastic waste being deposited in a landfill or going out into the broader environment. Plastic waste represents about 80% of all the litter collected along the Great Lakes shorelines, and there's approximately 10,000 tons of plastic waste entering the Great Lakes every year. By improving our plastic waste management, there are other benefits as well, including the ability to reduce, according to the federal government, 1.8 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions every year, and the ability to potentially create 42,000 jobs across Canada by investing in innovative solutions to manage plastic waste. So today we're excited to have the panelists with us to speak about what they're doing to take on this important issue. I'll briefly introduce them, and then we'll start the discussion. So Melissa Barbosa is the head of sustainability for IKEA Canada. She provides strategic and dynamic leadership, working through and across the organization to facilitate the delivery of the IKEA Group People and Planet Positive strategy, which enables the ongoing transformation and growth of the business. John Coyne is joining us from Unilever, and he's known for his leadership in corporate sustainability. John is a passionate activator of Unilever's Sustainable Living Plan and the Compass, which is Unilever's strategy to grow the business, reduce its environmental footprint, and increase its positive contribution to society. And finally, Katrina Shim leads Lush Cosmetics sustainability program across 5 manufacturing facilities, 2 distribution centers, and 250 retail shops. She works closely with cross-functional teams across the business and value chain to integrate and elevate sustainability initiatives through procurement, operational processes, and the built environment. Welcome all. So to kick things off, first, I have a broad question for everybody to pitch in on. For those who are less familiar with your work, can you provide a brief overview of your sustainability and waste diversion initiatives, and both broadly and specifically related to your work on plastic waste reduction and diversion from watersheds? And perhaps we can go in the order that I introduced you in. We'll start with Melissa.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, and hi, everybody. Happy Earth Day. So, as you said, I'm responsible in Canada for the implementation of our global People and Planet Positive strategy, which has some ambitious goals, more relevantly for this conversation, relating to becoming 100% circular and climate positive as a business by 2030. So within that change driver, we have a few different commitments, including being powered by 100% renewable energy while reducing or becoming more efficient as a business, supporting our customers through 100% EV delivery and services, and in becoming fully circular, ensuring that 0 waste of our operations goes to landfill, and also embedding circular design principles into our product development, finding gaps and solutions for waste in our supply chain, and then of course those end of life circular loops. When it comes to plastics, we've made some big moves in the last few years. So in 2019, we removed all single-use plastics from our operations and range. Of course, now the reality of COVID, that's not a current reality, but it is the plan. And right now we're working with what we can and trying to find end-of-life solutions for those PPEs. And when it comes to our packaging and product development, we're working on using only renewable or recycled materials in those products and packaging.
Thank you. John, could you provide us an overview as well?
You bet. Thanks. Thanks, Melissa. Broadly speaking, we have similar objectives, though numerically different than what Melissa has put in the window in terms of IKEA's ambitions. So when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to how it is we deal with consumers with respect to their packaging and so on, broadly similar. But let me see if I can highlight just a couple of specific things coming out of our Compass framework. The first thing is that we are committed to an absolute reduction in the use of virgin materials when it comes to our plastics and packaging. And that's important because it ties it to how it is that we think about recycled content in our packaging. So when we set out a target to reduce virgin plastic, we also set out a target to increase the use of recycled content. And that's important when we talk about how it is that we want to reformulate our products, standardize the materials that we use in our packaging across many jurisdictions, and then collect and process, more plastic and packaging than we actually use, which for some is an unusual commitment, but what it represents is something beyond our business. And what we're trying to suggest is that when it comes to the intersection of policy and what we stand for as a business, we need to participate much more broadly than just within our own enterprise. And by collecting and processing more packaging than we use, we're actually contributing disproportionately, in a positive way, we hope, to things like EPR programs, be they in Canadian provinces or anywhere around the world. So that broadly is designed to accomplish a significant reduction in our plastic packaging. We produce billions of units every single year, and it's our commitment to reduce the amount of material that we're putting into the marketplace and increase the amount of recycled content to get us well past that number that you just quoted, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you for that, John. Last but not least, Katrina, can you tell us about your initiatives?
Yeah, thank you, Todd. I think we're earlier in the process in terms of our 2030 planning. We're actually knee deep in it right now. So hopefully we'll have some goals to share shortly. When it comes to packaging and waste, we do quite a bit because we are vertically integrated. So across both the retail shops and our manufacturing and distribution. For packaging and plastics in particular, we have always focused on reduction and reuse as kind of the heart of the business. But plastics, it's interesting. We've been sourcing 100% post-consumer recycled plastics for over a decade. So for us, it's really been a learning process as we brought our supply chain from Asia to local around how do we actually create opportunities for recycling and reusing plastics here in North America. And that's through our take back program. So we collect back black pots from our customers, 5 pots for a free face mask. And then those pots are actually taken back to our facilities in Vancouver and Toronto, where we've partnered with local processors to grind, wash, and make new pots. So that program has evolved. That program's probably, that's at least 7 years old. And the 100% PCR has been over 10 years. So it's been really interesting, I think, as we've seen the market evolve and the players evolve, and other companies as well around kind of the availability of recycled content materials, as we look to see what's the kind of next innovation for us. I think where we're really looking at is what does refill look like and reuse, particularly around our primary packaging. We've done a lot of that for gift packaging and other aspects, but how do we kind of make our primary packaging even more circular?
Excellent, thank you. Katrina, I'll stay with you for the next question. Why is it important to your organization to keep plastic waste out of the watersheds and landfills?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think for me, all businesses really have responsibility because we're the ones who are bringing packaging and waste into customers' homes. You know, whether that's the primary packaging, it's the container it's in, whether it's the bag from the store, or if it's the box from a delivery perspective, we're the ones who are ultimately generating that waste that ends up in homes, that ends up in landfills or MRFs or watersheds or what have you. And that's where the responsibility comes back to us as the manufacturers and the retailers around how do we reduce the amount of packaging that goes out in the first place. So I think for Lush, we have 900 shops globally. We really do have an opportunity. You know, we're a small player within obviously the larger personal care product, but we do have an opportunity to really influence daily bathroom routines around the world, and see ourselves as a bit of that catalyst for change to help kind of prove to other companies that some things are possible. So I think the big piece is around one of our core values from the get-go of the business, which is what we call naked of packaging, so package-free products. And that really started with Mark and Mo Constantine, our founders in the UK, who humble beginnings when they started, made their products out of upcycled drain pipes and lunch pails, and would just cut the product and give products to customers naked without packaging. And that innovation around no packaging has really been kind of at the heart of the business from the beginning. And right now, over 50% of our products are package free. So it's been interesting as we've continued to explore. We had a big, I think, burst of inspiration around package free items. We have always had shampoo bars, but items like toothy tabs to get rid of toothpaste bottles, all sorts of, you know, solid lotions, all different products to really kind of test the market with and prove that packaging isn't really necessary. So I think that's kind of been big for me around like what can we do as a retailer around influencing customers. And then at the same time, being a manufacturer and retailer, I think a manufacturing distributor, we have that opportunity around how do we influence upstream. You know, so not only how do we influence our customers, but how do we work with our suppliers around reducing the amount of packaging that we have, which has really been a focus over the past, I would say, 3 years, and surveying all the packaging that's coming into our facilities. And we found some really neat opportunities around, you know, reducing soft plastic wrap and stuff from other suppliers that are coming from Asia or other areas, to say we don't need that. You know, we're willing to test it and take the consequences and see if we actually need it, and work with those suppliers to change the packaging that they're sending out to other manufacturers. Or for local suppliers working on, say, box reuse programs that we've been piloting in Vancouver, just to cut down on the amount of material that's going back and forth with some of our suppliers where we already have some really good relationships and are close to home. So I think that's it for me. It's like, how do we as businesses influence both customer behavior and our supplier practices to take responsibility for the materials that we're sending out into the world.
Excellent, thank you for that. Melissa, can you tell us about a time when you faced resistance implementing a sustainability initiative at your organization, how you broached the topic to convince relevant parties to get them to change in the system?
Sure, I can definitely speak to that. I will say, I don't know if resistance is the right word, maybe just the most challenging thing about 100% goal. There's a really great piece about 100% circular goal where that means that everyone has to be on board. The whole business is on board, and it goes across the entire business. The challenging part is that everyone needs to be on board and everyone needs to know what it means to be circular and how their function contributes. And we're not just talking about bits and pieces of the business. We're talking everything from sourcing to product development, supply chain partners, logistics, operations, the services we develop for our customers, like our take back, and then of course those end of life material loop actions and innovations. So when we first launched this new sustainability strategy in near end of 2018, we knew that the 100% circular goal was super ambitious and needed to be implemented in the right way. We can't just, you know, go full steam ahead. There had to be a really strong foundation of stakeholder engagement, awareness, and education. So as a sustainability function, what we did was develop a plan of stakeholder engagement for all the functions involved, which is pretty much everybody, all the different units at every level, and had specific engagement activities for each of those that really spoke to circularity as a business proposition, how it relates to their function, how it can support their function, and IKEA as a whole. We're still in that process in a different way through training and building awareness and knowledge and education. but laying that foundation was the most important piece, and being able to move the needle in the areas that we have already, like developing the take back program, similar to what Katrina said for our materials, like trying innovation, test and tries for end of life materials, like delving into blockchain innovation opportunities to really dive into the supply chain and ensure we are able to meet those goals by 2030, which is, incredibly ambitious, but it's been an exploration. It's been a journey of discovery, because you have to dig so deep into the business. And it's also been an opportunity to engage stakeholders and find these mutually beneficial arrangements within the business as well that help us move forward. So yes, I wouldn't say it's resistance, but it was a challenge to avoid that resistance, I guess,
Right.
in getting through that.
Cool. John, if you could change one municipal, provincial, or federal policy to impact plastic waste diversion, what would that be?
One. There are so many. Just let me answer it this way. First of all, thank you to Katrina and Melissa, because what we've just heard are stories about experimentation and persuasion, the use of technology, the whole idea of discovery, the whole idea of disruption, and how that allows our businesses to relate to our suppliers, our own colleagues, and our customers. And those are, we have to land in those kinds of places in order to understand what is possible. And now you want to talk about policy. Well, policy needs to have all of those things, I think Todd brought to bear. And we need to be thinking a lot more imaginatively and courageously about what we think government policy needs to contribute here. The first thing, of course, that could be thought about here is what we call extended producer responsibility. Now, that doesn't sit at the municipal level, it sits at the provincial level. It can sit in part at the federal level, but the whole notion that producers need to be responsible for the recovery of the material that they put into the marketplace is essential from three different perspectives. The first, of course, is environmental. If we're going to make any progress in this space, we must massively increase the amount of material that is recycled through the economy. And that's important from an environmental point of view, if for no other reason. But there are two other very important reasons. And the second is, of course, economic. And the economic value of the material that is being lost to the economy and wasted into the environment is just criminal in terms of the amount of material that is just literally lost to the economy. And that's not just single-use plastics, that's virtually all plastics that don't get recovered. And the third area, which of course is as well a policy area, is the health area. Plastics degrade, plastics foul. They affect wildlife, they affect water systems, and ultimately they're going to affect human health as plastics degrade over time. So whether you're looking at it environmentally or economically or from a health perspective, government policy needs to intersect with all of the ambitions which each of us is commenting on today, and needs to intersect around the interests of citizens. And that means we need to surrender a lot of the old-fashioned ideas, perhaps, about who gets to do what in the economy, and we need to focus on outcomes and decide that 10% is no good and 90% is a lot better in terms of recycling, and that we need to twin all of these policies through all of these jurisdictions to ensure that we're actually achieving a desirable outcome. Companies want to do it, employees want to do it, consumers want to do it. What's the problem? Really? This should be something that all levels of government should agree on from each of those perspectives, but they should also have a sense of urgency, for goodness sake, about this. I mean, we're befouling the environment, we're burning the planet, we're leaving garbage lying all over the place. Surely somebody in government thinks that that's a more urgent challenge than we've currently seen up to this point. So producer responsibility to me would be the one policy, Todd, that I would want to make sure is fully implemented across the board for virtually all materials, not just packaging and plastics. I mean, I can't think of anything out there that we generally consume that is not in some way recyclable or reusable in some fashion. So why aren't we doing that? Like, what is it about this planet that we care so little about, saving only one day a year to be Earth Day, that we think that we can just go and dump this stuff everywhere? Anyway, long answer, one policy. Producer responsibility, Todd. How's that?
Oh, it's a good answer. And I echo your point on the economic costs of waste. I think back to my days in pulp and paper, and that's when we got the most attention to the waste stream. Was when we started putting a price tag on all of the different materials that were going out of the organization. It really made a difference.
Absolutely, it's a good example.
Yeah. So the next question that I have before we get into the audience questions, again, it's for everybody. We'll just go around the other direction, I guess. We'll start with Katrina. What advice would you give to an organization just starting to tackle plastic waste management?
That's a good question. Just starting to tackle. I would say, I think you can't manage what you can't measure. So I feel like if that's not already there, I think the first place is really just getting understanding of what your baseline is across your locations or where you're at. And then from there, I think waste audits are really important to really understand what, once you have the numbers, what's the composition of that waste, and really identify what those opportunities are. And I think a lot of companies just look at the diversion piece, but I do think reduction and reuse opportunities are really big too. And that's been something I think that we've seen evolve in the past several years, is like, we had our main streams and now we have like 14 different streams on each coast. So I think it is really understanding what that composition is and then what the opportunities are for you to really look at material by material. Again, obviously depends on your location, but I think that's it. It's like, can't manage what you can't measure. So start with the baseline, where are the big opportunities, and then go through your list.
Excellent. John, what would your advice be?
I would agree with everything that Katrina just said, but she's highlighted the complexity of some of this. It isn't just about diversion. It's about building the right kind of product that actually can be turned into a more circular piece of work, whether through reuse or through recycling. But I think it begins with just assuming that you are responsible and understanding that as you build up your bill of materials for whatever product you want to put in the marketplace, the cost of recovery, the cost of diversion, the cost of what it means to reuse a product and reutilize materials needs to be built into the cost of goods. And I think if you start from that perspective, you won't make a mistake down the line, thinking that, yeah, you priced it right into the marketplace and then realize, uh-oh, no, I didn't. So assume you're responsible at the front end, price your materials appropriately as you construct everything.
Thanks, John. Melissa, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, all great points. I would add, maybe if you're just starting out, to really develop a clear and ambitious commitment along with the goals and objectives tied to that. And I was going to also echo John, just map out your ownership, see what that would look like, and make your decisions from there based on those commitments and goals. We talk about, in our organization, we talk about what it looks like to take ownership of the product from design development to end of life, and have a leasing arrangement with the customer so that we know what's happening through the product's life cycle. We can make those circular decisions for the entire life cycle of the product. So, it's one way to think about those opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, we actually have a question coming in from the chat now. So there's been greater movement towards packaging reuse. Can you speak to that transition in the industry, and how can we help to promote a culture of reuse? Anybody like to field that, or?
I nominate Katrina.
I wish I had the answer. I think that's the one that we're thinking about. Melissa, do you want to go first? I feel like you guys have started.
It was a clarifying question if we mean reuse of the materials or reuse of the actual packaging.
This was more the materials in packaging is what's being referenced.
Yeah, that's the challenge with plastics, is because they do degrade throughout the reuse, right? So it's really about trying to get away from that completely, we find. And right now we are using recyclable materials, but we know that there's a certain end life to that process as well. I'm not sure if Katrina and John want to chime in there.
Yeah, it does degrade, and so you eventually lose the ability to utilize those materials. But you can go through a lot of reutilization and a lot of change for those materials before they are eventually waste. And I think building the culture of this comes back a little bit more to, well, what are you going to put a price on? I mean, you're going to put a price on what counts, and you're going to put a value on what counts. And the building the culture of this means you got to build people's awareness. And one of the ways to build awareness is to say, well, it's going to cost you something to do this. And we're going to cost it out appropriately. We're going to level the playing field, and everybody's going to make a contribution in this space. Big, small, middle, doesn't matter. Everybody's going to make a contribution to this. And we will then be able to speak to consumers intelligently about it. And I think from that, you will then develop a culture. We won't be able to do this individually. This will be a lot of actors in the economy contributing their own individual voices, but trying to do it in a common way if we're thinking about a circular economy.
Yeah, and that's what as a business we've been trying to do as well is, as you mentioned earlier, John, is go extend past just our business and support our customers in living more healthy and sustainable lives at home through, you know, the little actions day to day, whether it's more sustainable actions, more sustainable products, supporting them with services, but on the back end being more responsible, like taking our shrink wrap and creating new product out of that. And, you know, it's more than just our operation. We have to think big, and when we have the influence to do so, I think it's our responsibility to stretch as far as we can with that influence.
Yeah, I think from our side, it's interesting because it's something we've been trying to explore for a while now. And for us, not just the degradation of the plastics, but we also have quite strict standards when it comes to, like, even our PCR content that we use for our pots have to meet FDA standards. Or we make sure that they meet FDA standards. I don't think that they're actually required, but from our perspective, we want to make sure that they're safe. And then it comes in with like the cleaning of them. And how do you do that in a proper way so that you don't get microbial count when you're trying to reuse them? So that's some of the stuff that we've been trying to work through. And it is interesting to see, you know, to John's point around large movements like Loop and others that are, you know, setting up the infrastructure for washing and cleaning that many companies can use and leverage, as opposed to each company trying to have to set up their own kind of system. I think knowing Lush, we try to do things internally, so we may try and build out our own thing, but I think it is interesting to see, like, what are those partners in the field who are willing. We have found some that are kind of willing to explore with us right now on what that looks like. So I think it is kind of a shift in the marketplace for manufacturers or for others to be able to have that kind of washing technology and then connection back to, you know, customers, and what that model looks like for refill and reuse kind of differs depending on the industry and the product. So I think it is interesting. I think it will take like large scale movement from a overall, you know, industry or business perspective to do that. In terms of shifting customer use, I think that is happening already, and I think it's happening with the younger generation. You know, I think that mindset's already there. So it's kind of like, and we're kind of in that with Lush, with that age group, you know. So I do think it is, you know, how do you leverage that interest and excitement? How do you find those advocates to help, you know, shift the dialogue that's happening in society? I think that's what it'll take. It's you know, word of mouth from people who really care about it, and I think that's a big piece of it. And how can we be part of the conversation with our customers to help elevate that with our influencers, to help elevate that with the broader community?
Hearing a common theme of both shared value and values, the economics and the ethics of it all. It's bigger than one organization can do by themselves. Another question related to packaging. Has anyone on the panel looked at biodegradable or plant-based packaging? What's the opportunity for these as alternatives?
Yes, and limited. I can put it that way. Yes, we've looked at it for some products. It has limited utilization. The challenge with a lot of these different kinds of formats is that when they end up in various systems, including recycling systems, they actually become part of the problem to degrade the recycling system. So when we think about this, we're looking at this more from a, how do you standardize materials more? In other words, how do we get only certain plastics for certain materials used that can form a common framework and backbone in a recycling system that allows you to generate scale and some synergy in the system, which allows your quality of material to go up and therefore the acceptability of the recycled content then to be improved. Yes, it's very attractive to say, yes, I'd like to try something that is biodegradable, but you need to create a separate infrastructure for all of that. And you need to have a very specific way of handling those materials in order to make sure that you're not creating something that essentially ends up being garbage. Okay, I'm not saying that's what happens. I'm just saying you just have to be very careful creating a separate stream for those kinds of things.
Right.
Yeah,
You don't want the solution to be a new problem.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I would add that to that it's the sharing value, the shared values, and the value creation. So not adding more to the noise, but more enriching the end of life material options that we do have through innovation and creating value for them.
Yeah, I don't have anything too much more to add to that. I was just going to say for us, same reason for the bioplastics, but I think biomaterial and plant-based materials is an interesting area because that, you know, we have the styrofoam that's made out of like potato starch, you know, you can just put it down your toilet, flush it, what have you, you know, like it's like, what's the innovation in those type of plant-based materials, mycelium packaging? Like, I think those are the interesting ones because it doesn't confuse the customer as much as to where it can go and it breaks down easily. But yeah, there's some interesting technology. I think there's some interesting materials evolving right now. But it's
actually, that's a really good. That's a good point because you just highlighted the difference between primary and secondary packaging, and there can be opportunities for secondary packaging, the kind of bulk pack styrofoam potato starch materials you're talking about, that is packing materials. That stuff would not end up in a recycling system. That will find its home somewhere else. So that's a very good point. There is primary and secondary that we should be thinking about in that way. It's a very good point.
Okay, the next question, is a very specific question, follow on to the federal policy piece. What minimum percentage of recycled content in plastic products would make a meaningful impact on secondary markets? I don't know if any of you can answer that one, but yeah.
Do I have to?
No.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no
idea.
Idea.
That's a very, very broad.
But we don't have the data. Like, we don't understand the volume of consumption in various marketplaces. And without data, you can't actually set a target that's meaningful. Other than a recovery target, you can set a recovery target and say, if you put 100 units into the marketplace, you got to get 9 of the back or 90 of the back. Yeah, you can do that. But when it comes to a content standard, I really don't know how we could get there until we actually have full market data on the materials that we're talking about. And that is something that governments could help to mandate.
Absolutely. Okay, the next question, in terms of government policy, what can municipalities do? So I guess asking, what is the role for municipalities relative to other levels of government?
I know this is more John's area maybe of expertise, but as a citizen of Canada, I think there's a lot in the area of education that municipalities can provide their citizens around how to recycle, what to recycle. There's so much difference from municipality to municipality that the lack of clarity creates so much contamination and issues just from the simple at-home recycling process. So I think there's a lot more that can be done there. That's just my perspective as a citizen.
Okay.
Municipalities have done a phenomenal job over 30 years building up recycling systems in this country. You compare it to a lot of other places on this planet, let alone our neighbor to the south. And municipal actors in Canada, in virtually all provinces, have done a phenomenal job constructing, in some cases, best in the world class collection systems, for example. That said, they operate on a municipal basis, which means, and they know this, they cannot get the scale and the harmony associated with those programs that you can get under a producer responsibility program. All provinces are moving in that direction. BC's there, Ontario's moving forward, Alberta, Quebec, the Atlantic, Saskatchewan, everybody's moving that way. And that will allow the municipalities then to participate in those kinds of systems as suppliers of services, because they know their citizens and they know the infrastructure and they know the routes and they know their councillors and so on. So they're going to have an opportunity to participate in a different way, but build on the work that they've already put into the marketplace over the last 30 plus years.
Thanks
Yeah,
for that.
I think just to add, I think consistency is the big thing. I think it's also interesting, and this again, just being a citizen and like experience, but just in terms of like the frequency of pickups and like charging tags for extra, you know, if you have extra landfill over your amounts, like I think putting those things in place, granted they're small amounts, but I think it does change people's behavior around how much they're generating of all the streams.
Right. Okay. The next question up, can you tell us about a specific project that you're proud of that has had a significant impact on plastic waste reduction or diversion? Maybe we'll start with Melissa.
Sure. I mean, of course, the ban of single-use plastics in our operations. But what I'm really proud of as of late is our engagement with social enterprise and partnering with them as service providers. So in circularity, one example off the top of my head is our partnership with Furniture Bank, where now in the GTA and hopefully to roll out across the country, instead of recycling our mattresses, we're actually repurposing them for families in need, mattress returns and mattresses from our take back program. What we're doing is essentially extending the life of the product, which is the biggest impact we can have from a retail perspective. And we're supporting, you know, I'm trying to do the math, but I believe it's 3,000 mattresses per unit per year. And those are all going 97% to families in need through social services network across the GTA, thanks to our partners, Furniture Bank. The other 3 to 5% are being recycled, as they would. We also work with social enterprise to recycle in areas like Winnipeg. I think we talk about value creation. I think there's value in finding, of course, value in end-of-life materials, but also societal and natural capital. And we try to look at that 3-pronged approach with every circular initiative that we developed. And that's one that we're really proud of because it's so impactful and we see the stories and it's a pride point for us. So not just about waste, but more than that.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And yeah, we have a lot of construction activity here at the airport. So when we can, we'll divert construction waste to Habitat for Humanity so that they can use the excess material. John, how about yourself?
Well, we're not a retailer and we don't have such a broad array of goods like IKEA does, but for us, the attention now needs to turn to things like product formulations and concentrations in such a way that we can allow people to buy one product once and then buy refillable or concentrated products so that we're not shipping large quantities of water and plastic all over the place. The thinking in this started years ago with our home care business with concentrated laundry detergents, but now it's beginning to evolve into personal care, the personal care side of the business. So rather than shipping products that have lots of water and lots of plastic, getting reusable products or getting refillable products into the marketplace allows us now to reduce substantially the amount of plastic, particularly fossil fuel plastic, out of the marketplace. So we're going to continue to apply ourselves to that understanding that there's economic value to it, but a really big environmental benefit as well.
Excellent. How about yourself, Katrina?
I'm trying to think of on the plastics front, because I think I spoke already to a lot of the things that we are doing on the plastic side that we have been doing for some time. I think in terms of new and innovative activities, I think it is really around the supplier engagement side on a manufacturing piece. It's not plastics per se, but I think we're looking at other, we do have wins from reduction of plastics, but even the box reuse program, like that was, we noticed that one department 70% of the material coming out of that department was cardboard, you know, and it was just like, how do we start to look at opportunities for reuse with our big material streams, and focus in on those areas. So I think that was kind of a new and interesting one. And the other one I think it's interesting to mention that we did was, and again, this is not plastics, but around the idea of waste was, we were really struggling on how do you tackle waste diversion and aversion in our retail shops when you've got like 250 shops across North America that all have different recycling, composting. They're in malls, they're in street fronts, they're all over the place. And we just put out a challenge to our regional sustainability stewards and the eco warriors that we have in each of our shops on finding local composting partners, because when we did the audits, that's where the weight was, you know, and it was like, how can we remove all this organic material? And it was really interesting because we ended up with 50 new composting partners across North America, and some of them were great social enterprises, to Melissa's point, you know, run by vets or run on bicycles, or women-owned, local gardens. Like, it was just really neat to see that connection with local communities, and being able to do it be able to initiate it from from Vancouver, but have that kind of trickle-on effect across all the communities where we have shops. So I guess that was an interesting one. Again, not plastics, but waste related.
Absolutely. Still relevant. Okay, the next question, how do we convert the unconverted? What can we do to change? Oh, okay, the unconverted individual, okay. What can we do to change the culture in business or in the public?
Make it expensive.
Price signals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Price signals are critical. But education also helps. I mean, some people are reluctant because they just don't know a lot, and they're busy and they're tired and they're frustrated and they're distracted. So how do we make them care about it? Well, you put a price on it, but you also educate them. There's a better way for them to comport themselves, whether it's a single-use plastic that ends up in the recycling system, or just where they place their materials, and just give them an opportunity to think about it. Okay, that's our job as manufacturers, as retailers. Educate our consumers, help them understand what the right way to do, what the right way to act might be, I guess.
Agreed. Any other thoughts on that, Katrina?
I was just going to say it's interesting because we are just putting together a team. We just did a Earth Month competition, and so we got some winners from across the business, and we're putting together a team for this local competition called Brands for Better. And a bunch of different companies. They told us as soon as they got Deloitte on, they got like a bunch more brands coming in. But it's a hackathon around how do we like transform Vancouver to zero waste. But I think it's like that. It's like, how do you bring together some great minds with folks in our team? We're trying to pull together marketing, you know, some sustainability folks, some folks in retail, some folks in manufacturing, just to like bring minds together around how do we bring out campaigns and can help to influence people, but kind of leverage the business community or other folks who want to submit as a team to get involved in putting together ideas, really kind of at a local level.
Excellent. Yeah.
This isn't just a business challenge either, Todd. I mean, when we think about governments, I mean, governments control the education system. Well, the education system plays a critical role in educating citizens, not just about, you know, how to do math and spell or how to turn on a computer, but to literally know what is, you know, a good way for them to be responsible consumers. And we haven't insisted that that kind of thinking show up in the education system, but boy, if it did, that would help a lot, actually, I think.
Yeah,
it's a different
agreed.
challenge.
And you know, I've got 12 and 10-year-old girls, and I have to say the level of awareness, broader environmental awareness, is much greater than it was before. But the focus on solid waste and plastics, I don't think is there. But the awareness on energy is actually quite incredible. And my kids have actually asked me how many liters per flush on the toilet, which I couldn't answer right offhand, but yeah.
But you went to find out, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. So we're getting near the end of time here. It's been a great conversation. I'm going to invite everybody to turn that conversation into action going forward. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer now to share an easy and actionable way for us all to contribute to solving the problem of plastic waste.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you so much, Todd, and all of the panel. It was a really wonderful conversation to listen in on. And just on that education piece that that John was mentioning, I still remember people coming into my school to teach you how to limit your water use while brushing your teeth. And it was a very impactful moment for me. So I definitely think that using the education system is a wonderful tool that we should be thinking about. But yes, I do want to take an opportunity now to invite you all here on the call to take action on plastic waste reduction. So one of the first actions you can take is to go ahead and download our Preventing Plastic Waste and Reduction in our Watersheds guide. You can download that with the link. But we also have a challenge that will help engage your employees to reduce their plastic use at home, in their communities, and in the workplace. And this is that education piece that the panel was talking about at the end. And it's also that piece around bringing people together to get ideas and to transform things on a larger scale. So we call this challenge the People Power Challenge. It runs year over year, but considering this very big and real challenge that we have with plastic waste, we are focusing the challenge around that. There is also a key component around health and well-being, and we know that, again, that is a very important issue right now. So we hope that this program will give all of our member companies and non-member companies an opportunity to really drive action in significant ways at their organizations, but also throughout their employees' homes. So it's a 12-week campaign. There is a friendly competition element, which helps drive that engagement of these teams that participate. And we really do allow for participation across the teams, whether they're working remotely or working on site. And Partners in Project Green staff facilitates it, providing educational webinars, interactive events, a scorecard of activities that will really push plastic waste reduction home in order to reduce those amounts of waste that are being generated. We have prizes and resources and tools, all facilitated by staff, so that you can really drive this home and take action together. So last year, we were able to achieve 650 environmental actions through this program, and I think that working together, we can really blow that out of the water. So I'd like to invite you to join us in the People Power Challenge this year. You can reach out to me directly to find out more, and we'll certainly be sure to include information in the follow-up email coming out of today. So yes, I just invite you all to take on the challenge to reduce plastic waste in your lives and at your workplaces. And I'll bring back Todd to say goodbye to us today.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, Toronto Pearson is a regular participant in the challenge, and we're looking forward to all of you joining us and helping to make this year, one of the most impactful ones ever. And thanks again to John, Melissa, and Katrina for joining us this morning or this afternoon, and to all of you for being part of this conversation. A recording is being made available for you shortly after today's event, and encourage you to share it with your friends and colleagues. Personal takeaway, as I said before, value and values really kind of came out for me as a theme, where plastic waste is something that is really, it's a big topic that crosses every stakeholder, and it needs everybody's engagement to properly address it. And the path to get there, to me, seems to be through shared values and shared value in addressing the issue. You can access the PPG white paper at partnersinprojectgreen.com/plastic waste. And please reach out to Partners in Project Green staff should you have any questions, or if you'd like to discuss your sustainability journey further. And we wish you all a happy Earth Day. look forward to continuing these conversations and driving further environmental action and economic prosperity in the GTA. Thank you all.